Okay, this update might be slightly unhinged. I usually make videos because I want to share something I've learned that might help you and it's something practical. But at the moment, I am sharing my journey just exactly as it is, because this is what we're living right now. I have lived with symptoms for a very long time. Like, I remember my first pain coming on at like 14, and it was in my, like, a burning in the nerves in my arms, and they called it tendonitis, and gave me a splint. And then the pain kind of escalated to the point where when I was 17, I would have burning shoulders at the end of the day. And they put me through several types of tests and then basically inferred, because of the pattern of the pain, that it came and went and changed in intensity and frequency, that I had made it up, and they kind of left me on my way. So I was like an 18-year-old who had anti-inflammatory pain meds and wrist splints and regular pain, but no answers. And then in my last year of university, I got very sick. And I have blown off a few times that I'm like the original COVID patient. It is very likely post-viral fatigue syndrome. Something happened. I was very sick. It took a long time to get better, but the fatigue and other symptoms never went away. So by the time I was in my early 20s, I was trying to work full time. I was in tremendous amounts of pain, going back and forth to the doctors. A healthy, like, with a good lifestyle young woman was coming to these people and saying, I don't sleep and I'm in pain all the time and I am exhausted. And they were like, I don't know. So I was left on amitriptyline for a long time. So I was like, in my early 20s, active, healthy lifestyle is absolute best I could. I worked very hard to try and be normal, and the pain just escalated. At some point, I got a diagnosis of fibromyalgia. At some point, I got access to my health records and saw that they had put chronic fatigue syndrome on as a diagnosis, but never told me. And I was living with all of these things. Anyone who's been following the journey more recently will know that at 36, I was finally diagnosed with endometriosis after going backwards and forwards over and over, telling them how bad the periods were. And someone had, like, one doctor literally said to me, people with fibromyalgia have bad periods. Well, do you want to know why? Like, why does it seem like you don't care? And so that got worse and worse. And it was to the point where I had lost so much weight. I was 50 kilograms. I looked like skeletal. I looked frail. My blood tests were just like worsening every time they did them. I was doing blood tests like every 2 or 3 months. And I had to pay, my family and I had to pay out of pocket for the endo operation because it would not have happened in the public system. That's how screwed it is over here. And then I was recovering from that operation, and I was steadily getting better. And somewhere in that time, we realized that hypermobility spectrum disorder fits way better than fibromyalgia ever did. So my GP and I were working on an understanding of hypermobility spectrum disorder. And as a result of that knowledge, I was able to put some things in place that helped me improve. I stopped getting things out of place because I was able to just be mindful of things like my SI joints. I was able to be mindful of them. I was able to start seeing a chiropractor who gently treated me. And so slowly over 2 years, I was improving. And then in October, something bizarre happened. I had a severe gut episode that saw me in urgent care. The pain was so bad, I can't even tell you. Like, I didn't know whether or not to call an ambulance. They wrote it off as gastritis, presumably one-off that would go away, but then the flare-ups kept happening. Just before Christmas, I saw a doctor I hadn't seen before, and she said, why are you having all of these symptoms and you've never even had like any exploration, not even a stool test? And I said, I don't know, man. So she sent away for a stool test, and we found out that my calprotectin, which is a marker that measures inflammation locally to your gut, it is meant to be under 50. At that time, it was 3,100. They called me and said, please go to the hospital. Please go to the acute diagnostic unit. We need to monitor you. So they were monitoring me. They did x-rays. 2 days later, I had a colonoscopy. But that colonoscopy was visually clear. The biopsy showed some mild non-specific inflammation that they didn't really know what to do with. They did an MRE, which is an MRI with some contrast in your gut region, and that was visually clear as well. So they did their best to have a look, and they said, look, there's no answer here at the moment. So we're going to say that it was a major inflammatory event and now you're having post-inflammatory sensitivity. That's how they were explaining the gut issues. So we went on to a watch and wait situation. Meanwhile, my flare-ups were getting more regular and worse, and the pattern was changing. So when I presented in December, it was a lot of diarrhea, but then by February, March, April, it was less diarrhea and more pain and like extreme spasms. And as usual, they wanted to be like, oh, it's a sensitivity, right? You're just oversensitive. Your gut, is sensitized. But the thing is that, yes, once there is a flare-up happening, then a sensitivity kicked in, right? Then the additional spasmy extra things came in. But when the flare-ups go, that all calms down. There is no residual stuff. It is not just sensitive. So for example, last week I had another test which was brutal, and it took me a few days to recover from. My stomach was very upset from the preparation, but since the weekend my stomach has been fairly relaxed, very relaxed by recent standards. No spasms, no cramps, nothing. So if it can go back to baseline on its own, this means something is setting it off. So we come back to this point. So we started some more tests. I've had another colonoscopy and a gastroscopy, and I had a pill cam where they visualize your small bowel, and all the results are coming in, and I see the gastroenterologist next week. And I get the reports to me, and what I do is I drop those reports into this one conversation I've been having with Claude AI, because I want it to tell me in plain language what the results mean or what it could mean. And when it was worse and I was, in the worst of it, it soothed me to be able to say, okay, here is all the results, here's what we've done, please give me the likelihood of what it might be, right? So high likely this, high likely that. And then my brain was able to go, okay, cool, this is what might be happening. We don't know for sure, but I can relax, because knowledge is very important for me. But the picture is getting murkier again. So the colonoscopy, the endoscopy, and the pill cam were all visually clear. But here's where it gets interesting. The biopsy from the colonoscopy and gastroscopy showed chronic inactive gastritis. So there is damage in my stomach. And I'm negative for a thing called H. pylori. So what often happens is that if you have chronic gastritis, but it's not caused by medicine use, because I have been religiously avoiding anti-inflammatories since the second this all started, and I was always very careful even before that. I've been very mindful of that. And when it's not H. pylori, it is often autoimmune. So I started having a look at where does this leave us, just so I can have a sense, so I can put it aside in my mind quietly until we have the appointment next week. What it highly likely comes back to is whatever I've been dealing with this whole time. So if it's autoimmune gastritis, then that's probably meaning that something with my immune system is also doing whatever else is going on in here. And we don't know yet. I don't know yet. We don't have enough answers. And I did have to do some more blood tests because she wanted to look more at my immune system. I have a feeling some of my immune markers have been a little bit masked because of the low-dose naltrexone. Low-dose naltrexone supports your immune system somehow, and so it can kind of hide some of those things. So they're doing more blood tests. So I have to trust that when I go next week, she'll have a clear picture, but it's not looking like any clear gut issue, like no Crohn's, no small bowel, no celiac, nothing like that. So all of the mainstream stuff is gone. Another possibility was MCAS, mast cell activation, but I don't present typically for that. Like, I've never really had allergic reactions or the flushing or any of that kind of thing. And I've also done a trial where you take 2 types of antihistamines, and that can often improve, but that didn't do anything. So I suspect it's not that. However, where we're sitting is it could be an underlying immune thing, and it could be either insufficiency or a dysregulation. Either way, these things have been brewing under the surface, causing pretty much every symptom I experience for a long time, but have been ignored or not explored. So the fact that I've never seen any type of specialist outside of a rheumatologist at this point is probably a travesty. And the thing is, I was nervous. I never wanted to push. I have had, doctors where you get the distinct feeling that they think that you're overreacting, or whatever. But every doctor I've ever seen until the one I'm seeing now has not wanted to push anything. They've wanted to just do the bare minimum that they can do to keep me functioning. But no one really has gone, okay, why is this woman with a very healthy lifestyle, with like a couple of diagnoses that might make sense, but no real exploration, why is she not improving or getting better? Why, no one has ever just been like curious before. So I've been sitting, living like this, and there's a very real possibility it points back to perhaps that condition, that sickness, that bug, that viral infection that I had at university could be functioning a bit like the long COVID functions now. So it dysregulates or changes your immune system, which causes a lot of systemic effects. And so they've been simmering away in the background and now are starting to cause damage in different places. So it could really be that I am the original ignored long COVID or post-viral patient. Either way, every time we dig into these things, it looks like I have just been gaslit and undertreated all these years. And I have been scared to push too hard for myself because I was scared that it would come back on me in the wrong way. Like, I have always been scared to change doctors because I'm scared that they wouldn't, the new doctor wouldn't necessarily give me low-dose naltrexone. I've been scared to push because I don't want to be labeled as some kind of malingerer. And actually, I should have been pushing harder, but the irony is I wasn't well enough to. I didn't have the resources in me or at all to do it. And now I have the brain capacity, the cognitive capacity has cleared, and I also have the AI helping me. And I know that there's issues, right? AI is not clean or easy, and there's a lot of discussion that people have about whether or not it should be used, but I have really benefited from using it to help me refine what I'm thinking, refine the questions I need to ask so that I can be really targeted in my doctor's appointments. And that's a whole other video which I need to make, to be honest. But all this to say, it just seems to come back to, why did a young woman get ignored all those years? And what on earth is going to happen now? I still don't know. I don't know what she's going to do. I don't think she has enough evidence for any conditions that fall under her to treat much. I don't know if chronic inactive gastritis requires treatment or just monitoring. But the gastritis has not, a little bit of damage in the stomach hasn't been causing everything else that's been going on, and the weight loss and the flares and the incapacitating stuff. So that's not the only answer, but it looks like after 6 months of intensive tests that have probably taxed me as much as the symptoms, we're not even done. And so if she sends me on to an immunologist, that's fine. But there is no system, there's no path in New Zealand for that comprehensive thing. We have little bits, and each one treats their own organ, but none of them treats things like overseas. They have clinics. They've been creating clinics and pathways for people with long COVID. But even here, our pain clinic system is atrocious, absolutely atrocious. I've heard so many horror stories. I had a very bad experience with it. They're very much of the dismissive, it's just sensitization, we're not going to bother having a look at anything properly, and you don't need physiotherapy, nobody should be touching anything, there's nothing to fix, you just need to do sleep hygiene and do some meditation and yoga and do some exercise, and then it'll be fine. This is not enough. It is not enough. I am 40 years old and I'm only just now well enough to start following my dreams that I should have been doing the last 20 years. I had to give up my plans of doing a master's degree in English literature because I was too sick to be able to do a master's degree and work enough to live. And I struggled through all that time, and every single point where I have improved at all has been but by my push, by my work. I researched and asked for the low-dose naltrexone. I pushed for the endometriosis. I had to go ahead and find like a private specialist for the endo to get that done. I had to research and find hypermobility spectrum disorder and take it to my GP. And then when my GP went through it very carefully with me, she went through every part of the diagnostic criteria, we talked it through, and she said, yes, I think this is it. And then she apologized because she can't do anything else. She can't refer me on. Rheumatology don't take hypermobile patients because they can't do anything for them. They don't have a medicine. It sounds like rheumatologists just want you to have one of their tidy few diagnoses, which they have a particular medicine for, and that's it, they're done. There is no path forward. And so, like today, I'm sitting here waiting for the results of a lot of gastro tests to see what is wrong with my gut. And yet I'm still dealing with the other issues, and we never have understood why. And why I have been improving so much, and I have a meticulous whole of life routine. I am healthier than 9 times out of 10 people out of there, right? I am the only one doing regular exercise to my ability, protecting my sleep, doing all the things, and I cannot just get to that last bit, and still somehow I'm worsening. And at least now I have the private insurance, so I could force it, because if I was still waiting for the public system, I don't even know if I would have had half the tests I've had, and we definitely wouldn't have any answers or any way of treatments. It just boggles the mind. And so I'm feeling a bit defeated. I put my back out yesterday. I don't even know how I did it. And it's the first time in a long time. And so my back is hurting, so sitting here is hurting. And I actually have to sit down and work. So I don't know how I'm actually going to do that. I'll go and get my heat pack. But I just wanted to just talk about this and share this journey, because I know I am not the only one. And I know that I am damn lucky in my resources and in my capacities and in the way my brain works for fighting for the research and the information and the opportunities. Like, as crappy as our system here can be, I know that it's better than a lot of places. So I know that I am one of the lucky ones. But how much of my life have I suffered, literally suffered, alone, with no understanding? Because when the doctors don't understand, then I don't understand. So I wasn't even that compassionate to myself. I didn't even realize how sick I was. And so how can anyone I know have compassion for me when no one understands? It really just sucks. But I've made the best of it. I've done my best, and I'm really glad I can say that I have. And this whole YouTube channel and my whole Substack and all my books are everything I've learned, in case it helps you. So please feel free to have a look through and put any comments below if you have any questions, or if you're in the same boat as me. And if you've made it this long through this video, thanks so much for being here. Hopefully we have some proactive news next week.